The night shift at the Starport Diner was quiet. Only a few travelers wandered through the neon-lit corridors of the Trade Moon. The hum of engines outside mixed with the soft clatter of dishes. Mara, a young human waitress, wiped a table for the 10th time that evening and sighed. She liked working here even if the tips were small. The customers were usually polite, sometimes odd, but nothing out of the ordinary happened. Then they came. At first, she thought they were children, lost in strange cloaks that shimmered with tiny lights. But the figures were small dragons, no bigger than a loaf of bread, walking on two legs and tilting their heads curiously at the diner. Their scales glimmered faintly, like stars trapped under glass, and tiny wings flicked behind them as they waddled to a table in the corner. Mara froze. She had seen alien species before, but these were unlike anything she had read about in the Starport Guide. Other diners noticed them too. Whispers spread quietly, but no one moved closer. The dragons looked calm and careful, examining the booths as if they were exploring a new world. One of them, a deep green hatchling with wide eyes, tapped on the menu with a claw. It made a small chime when it touched the laminated page, and its companions peered over its shoulder. Mara walked toward them cautiously. Hello, she said. What would you like to eat? The dragons didn't speak, or at least not in any human language she could understand. Instead, they pointed at pictures of food. One tapped the macaroni dish with glowing enthusiasm. Another leaned closer, sniffing the air above the imaginary steam. Mara blinked. Macaroni? She asked, shrugging. Okay. One macaroni coming up. She turned to the kitchen and called the order. In the kitchen, the chef, an older human named Sam, laughed softly. Macaroni for little dragons? You don't know what you're doing, Mara? I think they want something simple, she replied. Let's not scare them with fancy stuff. When she returned with the plate, the dragons stared at it. Then, slowly they began to eat. Their movements were careful, precise, almost ceremonial. Each bite was deliberate, each chew measured. Mara watched, fascinated. She had served many odd customers, but never anyone who seemed so serious about food. One diner, a tall alien with 4 arms and a bright orange skin pattern, laughed quietly. They're just kids, it said. Little dragons don't know good food. Watch, they'll hate it. But they did not. The hatchlings ate silently, and when the last macaroni noodle was gone, they leaned back and blinked slowly at Mara. Then, in unison, they bowed. The motion was small, elegant, and precise. Mara's stomach flipped. No animal she had ever seen could bow like that. It was respectful. Almost reverent. Mara felt a strange warmth in her chest. You liked it? She asked softly. One of the dragons made a small chirping sound, almost like a laugh, and tapped the table twice. It was a gesture she could not explain, but it felt like a thank you. The dragons did not leave immediately. They stayed, observing the other customers quietly. Mara returned to her duties, but she kept glancing at them. Something about the way they moved, their quiet focus, made her think they were more than just simple creatures. They were smart. Very smart. Then, as suddenly as they had arrived, they stood. Their wings fluttered once, softly, and they waddled toward the door. Mara followed a few steps behind. Outside, the hum of the spaceport felt louder than before. The dragons stopped at the edge of the landing pad and turned. Again they bowed, and this time, a small sparkling light escaped from their scales, hovering in the air for a moment like a tiny star. Mara's eyes widened. Wait, what was that? One dragon chirped again and tapped its chest, then the air, then theirs. It seemed to be communicating, but not in any way Mara could understand. It was a gesture, a symbol of connection. Mara felt a shiver of awe. These creatures were unusual, important maybe, but she did not know how. The next morning, the story of the tiny dragons spread slowly. Other waitstaff whispered, but the aliens at the spaceport mostly ignored it, thinking it was a harmless prank or a strange pet show. Mara did not mind. She kept thinking about their gestures, their serious eating, their small, perfect bows. Something inside her told her that this night had changed something, not in the galaxy, not yet, but in her. Weeks passed, and the diner returned to normal, but Mara noticed little things. Occasionally, a dish would disappear faster than it should, leaving behind a faint shimmer, as if something magical had tasted it. Sometimes she would find tiny footprints that glowed softly, leading from a table to the door. She never saw the dragons again, but she felt their presence somehow. Late one night, when the spaceport was almost empty, Mara hummed quietly while cleaning the counter. A new customer walked in looking lost. Mara smiled politely and handed over a menu. Then, from somewhere beyond the door, she heard the faintest chime of wings. She froze. Her heart raced. Could it be them? She didn't know. The diner lights flickered once, and the hum of the engines outside seemed to shift, almost like a greeting. Mara shook her head, laughing softly at herself. I'm imagining things, she whispered. Yet she felt certain that the tiny dragons, wherever they were, had left a mark not just on the diner but on her heart. From that night on, Mara served every meal with care, no matter how small the order. She smiled at the simplest dishes, remembering how tiny creatures had eaten macaroni as if it were the finest delicacy in the galaxy. And she wondered, maybe, just maybe, the universe had noticed too. The day after the tiny dragons visited, Mara noticed something strange. News of the unusual customers had begun to spread through the spaceport like wildfire. At first it was small talk, a whisper here, a giggle there. But soon, more serious visitors began arriving at the starport diner. A tall, silver-skinned alien with eyes that glowed faintly in the dim light stepped in. Are you the human who served the hatchlings? It asked in a calm voice. Mara blinked. Hatchlings? She repeated. Oh, you mean the little dragons? The alien nodded. Yes, we have been following them. They are not ordinary. And you serve them with care. Mara swallowed hard. She didn't feel special. She had only done her job, serving a simple dish because they pointed at it. Soon, other customers began asking the same question. A group of food critics from a distant galaxy arrived, their faces hidden behind floating holographic masks. They scribbled notes furiously, watching Mara as she worked. Other aliens, wearing the colors of merchant guilds and trade fleets, hovered nearby, whispering into devices Mara could not see. Mara's co-workers were worried. Sam, the diner chef, muttered, "You've gone and made a stir." "It's just macaroni, Mara." "It was macaroni," Mara said, shaking her head. "I don't know why anyone cares." But everyone cared. By mid-afternoon, a small line had formed outside the diner. Not for the food, but to see the human who had served the dragons. Mara felt nervous, but she kept smiling. She didn't understand what was happening, but she could feel it. Something important was unfolding. Across the spaceport, messages flashed in holograms. "Human serves hatchlings," one read. "Galactic chefs in shock," another. Mara overheard a merchant saying, "Only humans could do this. Their food is honest, pure, without pretension." She had never thought of macaroni as pure, but the words made her pause. That night the diner was packed. Mara balanced plates, keeping track of orders while watching the news flashes on the small screens in the corner. Each broadcast mentioned the tiny dragons again, and each time, her simple macaroni was praised as if it were a legendary meal. She laughed quietly, thinking, it was just noodles and butter. Then an unusual group arrived. 4 beings from a species Mara had never seen entered the diner, their bodies translucent and shimmering with moving patterns like flowing water. They spoke in soft, melodic tones, and their gestures were graceful. "We wish to see the human who fed the hatchlings," one said. Mara froze. "Me?" she asked. The alien nodded. "Yes. We seek understanding." The hatchlings chose well. Mara blinked. She didn't know what that meant. I just served food," she said. The aliens smiled in a way that felt like a gentle breeze. "Humans," one said, "your care in the smallest act has been noticed. Across the station your world is talked about with respect." Mara's head spun. Respect? For macaroni? For her? She laughed softly, not sure if she should cry or giggle. By the end of the week, rumors had reached the highest levels of the Spaceport Council. Reports arrived from traders, travelers, and even distant planetary envoys. Everyone wanted to know what had happened with the dragons. Mara kept serving her customers with a quiet determination, feeling both nervous and proud. The diner, once empty in the late hours, now had a line that curled around the corner. Some aliens offered gifts. A glowing crystal here, a tiny musical device there. Mara politely declined most, unsure what to do with such unusual things. She only wanted to keep her diner running and her customers fed. But the gifts reminded her that something extraordinary had happened. One evening, while clearing tables, Mara noticed a small shimmer in the corner. A faint trail of glowing scales, like those the dragons had left, floated across the floor. She knelt, reaching out, but the glow vanished before she could touch it. "They're still around," she whispered. Her heart raced. She did not know why, but she felt the dragon's presence even without seeing them. Rumors spread outside the station as well. Holonews channels showed animated versions of the dragons, exaggerating their size and abilities. Merchants and travelers told stories of the human who dared to serve the cosmic hatchlings, emphasizing the warmth and kindness in her actions. Mara found it strange. She had not meant to impress anyone. She had only been polite, serving what the dragons seemed to like. Yet, despite the attention, Mara stayed grounded. She did not allow the fame to change her. She worked her shifts as before, cleaning tables, serving meals, and smiling politely. She began to notice other humans and aliens watching carefully as she interacted with customers, perhaps wondering how someone so ordinary could touch something extraordinary. One quiet moment, she remembered the way the dragons had bowed, their small wings flicking softly, their eyes shining like tiny stars. That memory stayed with her. It reminded her that care, no matter how small, could leave an impact far larger than expected. By the end of the week, the diner had become more than a place to eat. It was a destination for curiosity, for learning, and for kindness. Mara realized that her simple act, serving macaroni, had created a ripple through the station, touching people, aliens, and perhaps even the larger galaxy. Late one night, Mara stood outside the diner, looking at the stars above the trade moon. The spaceport hummed with life, but the sky was quiet and vast. She thought of the hatchlings and wondered where they were now. Somewhere she felt sure they were tasting new things, learning about the universe. And somewhere, perhaps, they were remembering the human who gave them macaroni with no expectation, only care. Mara smiled softly. She did not understand everything that had happened, and perhaps she never would. But she knew this. Sometimes the smallest gestures could create the largest stories. And sometimes, the universe noticed even the simplest act of kindness. From that day on, Mara served every plate with attention, imagining that a tiny pair of glowing eyes might be watching, appreciating the care behind each bite. She did not need the dragons to be there to feel their approval. It was enough to know that somewhere out there, the universe had noticed. And slowly, Mara realized that her quiet little diner had become a place of legends, where even the simplest food could connect worlds. Mara had returned to her usual routine, but the quiet feeling she once knew in the diner was gone. Strange visitors kept arriving, always asking the same question: where is the human who served the hatchlings? Mara didn't know why they were so important, and she didn't dare ask. She was just a waitress. One evening, as the diner emptied after the late shift, a soft glow appeared in the corner. Mara turned quickly, thinking it was a trick of the lights. Instead, four small dragons hovered in the air, their wings fluttering gently, casting tiny reflections across the walls. Their eyes sparkled like distant stars. Mara froze, unsure what to do. A new figure stepped forward from the shadows. It was an elder being, tall and shimmering, with robes that seemed woven from starlight itself. Its face was kind, and its eyes reflected galaxies. "You are Mara," it said in a voice that sounded like wind over quiet mountains. "We are here to explain." Mara shook her head. I don't understand. They're just little dragons. I serve them macaroni. That's all." The elder's smile was gentle. "They are not ordinary dragons. They are young members of an ancient cosmic civilization, known across galaxies as master chefs of creation. They travel in small forms to learn about worlds quietly. Most worlds fail, showing only wealth or clever tricks. You gave them something they could trust." Mara's mouth fell open. "Master chefs of creation? You mean like famous chefs?" The elder chuckled softly. "Far more than chefs. They guide trade, peace, and alliances. Food is their language. And you spoke it without knowing. You showed care, humility, and honesty. These are rare qualities in the galaxy." Mara's hands shook slightly. She had never felt so small and so important at the same time. I just wanted to be polite," she said. "That is why you passed the test," the elder replied. "They came to many worlds. They judge not by taste alone, but by the heart behind the meal. You did not try to impress them. You gave them warmth, comfort, and honesty. Your macaroni meant more than any luxurious dish in the galaxy." Mara blinked, trying to let the words sink in. The dragons hovered closer, chirping softly as if they wanted her to understand. One tapped on the table and then pointed to her chest, then to theirs. It was simple but meaningful: connection. "You see," the elder continued, "most civilizations cook to show power, skill, or wealth. They forget that food is more than ingredients. It is care, story, and heart. Humanity, you understand this instinctively. You showed them that even small beings, like your tiny dragons, can be respected through simple actions." Mara felt a warmth spread through her chest. It was a strange mix of pride, fear, and awe. "So, all this attention, the visitors, the rumors, it's because of macaroni?" "Yes," the elder said, "because of the honesty behind it. Across the station and even beyond, your simple act has begun to shift perception. Other species are watching. They are learning. Humanity has shown that greatness does not begin with power but with care. Mara laughed softly, shaking her head. I never thought Macaroni could do that. The elder waved a hand and a small holographic display appeared. Images of the dragons, now larger and glowing, floated in the air. Mara saw their true forms, majestic, radiant beings with wings that spanned like the horizon and scales that shimmered with starlight. Their tiny forms she had seen in the diner were only their chosen disguises. They are still learning, the elder explained. They appear small to observe without threat. Most worlds cannot handle their presence. But you treated them as equals even in their smallest form. Mara stared at the images, feeling a mix of wonder and disbelief. She had served these cosmic beings without even knowing. You may wonder why they left no message, no reward, the elder continued. Their lesson is in experience, not in treasure. They have tested you and you have passed. But their presence is not gone entirely. They will return when your world is ready to show more of its heart to the galaxy. Mara nodded slowly, trying to absorb it all. The diner, the macaroni, the small dragons, it all felt like a dream, yet the shimmer of starlight in the room told her it was real. So, I'm not special? She asked quietly. You are special because you are ordinary, the elder said. Most would have been impressed or afraid. Most would have tried to show off. You did nothing extraordinary, and that is exactly why you mattered. The dragons chirped again, flapping their wings softly. One nudged Mara gently, as if to remind her that she had made a real connection. Mara smiled, tears threatening but held back by her astonishment. She had never felt so small and so big at the same time. The elder bowed and stepped back. Go on, human. Continue your life, serve your diner and treat each plate with care. The galaxy is watching in its own quiet way. Then the elder slowly faded, leaving only the gentle glow of the dragons. Mara stood in the diner, heart racing, realizing that her life had quietly changed forever. Later that night, she cleaned the tables and set out plates as usual. Every simple dish she placed on the counter now felt different. Every cup of tea, every bowl of soup, every plate of pasta carried a meaning she had never understood before. She was not just feeding hungry customers, she was connecting hearts across the universe. Mara looked out at the stars through the diner window. Somewhere, the dragons were traveling among them, tasting and learning, guided by care and honesty, carrying the memory of a human who served macaroni without knowing its power. She felt pride and responsibility but not fear. Somehow, the universe had trusted her and she would not forget it. That night, Mara went home with a quiet smile. She knew that the tiny dragons had shown her a truth. Greatness was not in showing off, but in understanding, kindness, and small acts of care. And from this night on, every meal she served carried not just food, but the knowledge that even the simplest thing could change worlds. Mara thought that after learning the truth about the baby dragons, life might return to normal. But the next morning the diner felt different. The usual customers were quieter, watching her carefully as if they expected something to happen. Mara's hands shook slightly as she carried trays of food. She had learned that her simple acts mattered in ways she did not understand. But she never imagined what came next. A soft hum filled the diner, and the air shimmered faintly. The tiny dragons appeared again, hovering in the center of the room. Their wings flickered, casting little streaks of light across the floor. Mara froze, unsure what they wanted this time. One of the dragons chirped and tapped the table, then pointed toward her. Then another tapped her hand gently and made a motion with its tiny wings that Mara had seen before. It was an invitation; she was to follow them. Before she could ask a question, the air shimmered more brightly, and a large figure appeared. It was the elder dragon, the one who had explained their cosmic importance before. Its eyes glowed warmly and it spoke in a soft, serious tone. Human Mara, we have a challenge for you. Mara blinked. A challenge? The elder nodded. Not for yourself. For your species. We wish to learn your ways, your cooking, your care. We wish to learn from ordinary humans. Not generals, not scientists, not politicians. Only those who cook with heart. Mara's head spun. You want humans to teach you how to cook? Yes, the elder said. Across the galaxy we have seen worlds that cook to impress. They cook to show skill or power. You humans cook to comfort, to care, and to connect. That is rare. And we wish to understand it fully. Mara swallowed hard. She had no idea how to explain herself. She had never been a teacher. She had never led anyone before, not in the kitchen and not anywhere else. And now, these cosmic dragons, beings who could reshape galactic alliances, were asking her to guide them. She looked at the tiny dragons. They chirped and hovered near her, small wings beating softly. It was as if they trusted her completely, even more than she trusted herself. Mara realized she could not refuse. Somehow she had to do this. Over the next few days, Mara gathered humans from all walks of life. Street vendors, home cooks, cafeteria workers, and bakers came quietly, curious and nervous. Some laughed, thinking it was a joke. Others were in awe of the dragons. Mara introduced herself and explained the challenge: to show these creatures how humans cook with care, honesty, and story. The dragons watched silently at first. They did not comment, did not judge, only observed. Each human prepared a dish, explaining why they made it, the story behind the recipe, and the care they put into each bite. Mara noticed how the dragon's eyes widened slightly at every gesture. When a baker showed how she kneaded bread with her hands, murmuring to it as she worked, the dragons leaned closer, wings twitching softly. The spaceport soon buzzed with gossip. Aliens and travelers who had heard of the tiny dragons came to watch. Some were curious, others skeptical, expecting humans to fail. They whispered among themselves, predicting embarrassment or mistakes. Mara ignored them. She focused on the humans, encouraging them to share not just recipes, but feelings and stories. A street cook named Yari stepped forward one evening. He was small and wiry, with hands rough from work. He prepared a stew using nothing expensive, nothing flashy, just vegetables and herbs he had grown himself. "I cooked this for my little sister," he said quietly. "When she's happy, I'm happy. That's why I cook it." The dragons tilted their heads, their eyes sparkling brighter than usual. One chirped softly, then flapped its wings rapidly. Mara realized that even without words they understood. They felt the care behind each meal, the honesty in every gesture. Every night, after the humans had cooked and shared their stories, the elder dragon spoke to Mara. "Do you see now? They teach us without knowing. They show us what matters. This is how you change worlds, human. Not with power, not with weapons, not with skill alone, but with care." Mara nodded, still amazed. She had never thought of herself as someone who could influence anything beyond the diner counter. Yet here she was, guiding cosmic dragons who had seen entire galaxies, teaching them the meaning of food and heart. The challenge lasted for a week. Each day, humans presented their dishes and shared their stories. The dragons listened, observed, and learned. By the end, they chirped, flapped, and hovered with excitement. They tested no one, judged no one harshly. They only absorbed, only felt. Mara saw the change in their eyes, the way their tiny wings moved more confidently, the glow in their scales brighter than before. On the final day, the elder dragon approached Mara. "You have done more than teach them," it said. "You have reminded the galaxy of what food truly means. Humanity, through the smallest acts, shows care and connection. You led them well." Mara felt her eyes sting. She had never expected to do anything so big. She had simply served macaroni to small dragons, then guided humans to share what they loved to cook. And yet, here she was, realizing that even small acts could ripple across worlds. The dragons hovered around the diner one last time, wings flicking softly, eyes sparkling. Then, without warning, they shot upward into the sky, leaving streaks of light behind. Mara watched until they vanished beyond the stars. She felt a mix of pride, sadness, and wonder. She had changed something, though she didn't fully understand how. Later, the humans who had helped returned to their lives, inspired and awed. Mara stayed at the diner, serving her customers, but now every plate she carried felt heavier with meaning. She smiled quietly to herself. Somewhere out there, cosmic beings had learned the importance of care, of honesty, of stories behind food. And it all started with a simple human who had served macaroni to tiny dragons. From that day on, Mara knew the galaxy was watching in its quiet way. Every dish she prepared, every gesture she made, carried the memory of the dragons and the humans who taught them. She had learned that the smallest acts could spark the greatest changes, and that even ordinary humans could shape extraordinary stories. The spaceport diner was quiet again, but it felt different. Mara walked between tables, placing dishes carefully, humming softly to herself. She had returned to her normal routine, yet she knew nothing was normal anymore. Somewhere out there, the tiny dragons were traveling through the stars, carrying lessons learned from humans. And humanity itself had begun to leave a mark in ways Mara never imagined. That morning, Mara noticed a small group of humans and aliens standing outside the diner. They were chefs, cooks, and food lovers from many planets. Each carried ingredients, simple tools, or just a willingness to share. They had heard the story of the tiny dragons and the human who had guided them. Now, they wanted to be part of something larger, something Mara was only beginning to understand. As she stepped outside, the dragons appeared again. They were no longer tiny. Their scales glimmered with the light of distant galaxies, and their wings stretched wide as they hovered above the ground. The elder dragon, glowing brighter than Mara had ever seen, spoke softly. "Humans and friends from many worlds, today we share what we have learned. We share what you have taught us. Not to compete, not to impress, but to understand and connect." Mara felt her heart race. The dragons were not here to judge. They were here to learn. And they wanted everyone to share, together, the meaning of food. People began to cook. A young human boy offered roasted vegetables, explaining that he cooked for his mother when she was tired. An alien chef showed a fermented drink, teaching patience and care. A small alien girl brought sweet pastries, telling how she had learned to make them to cheer up her siblings. Every dish had a story. Every gesture carried care. The dragons moved among them, chirping softly, tilting their heads, tasting and observing, learning more than anyone expected. Mara stood at the center, guiding and encouraging. She realized that this was the culmination of everything she had done, serving macaroni to tiny dragons, gathering humans to show them how care mattered, and now, seeing the galaxy come together over simple acts of kindness and food. Other species arrived as well, curious and skeptical. Many had traveled long distances, expecting grandeur or spectacle. Instead they found humility, honesty and warmth. Slowly their skepticism melted. They began to cook too, sharing meals and stories from their own worlds. The diner, the small spaceport, had become the center of something greater, a place where the universe could see what care truly meant. As the sun set over the trade moon, Mara looked up at the dragons. One landed softly on a railing, wings folding neatly, eyes sparkling. It chirped and nudged her gently. Mara smiled, understanding without words. The dragons had learned from humans, but humans had also learned from them. They had shown the galaxy that greatness does not only come from power, wealth, or skill, it comes from care, honesty, and connection. The elder dragon addressed everyone in a voice that echoed softly across the landing pad. "Across the galaxies, we have seen many civilizations. Few understand the meaning of food beyond technique. Humans teach us that even the smallest meals can carry the largest hearts. Today we celebrate not just cooking but understanding, not just skill but kindness." There was no applause, no grand ceremony, only quiet smiles, shared glances, and the sound of plates being prepared and tasted. Mara watched as humans and aliens alike realized the truth. Food was not merely for hunger. Food was for connection, for care, for storytelling. Later, as the night deepened, the dragons rose into the sky, leaving trails of starlight behind them. Mara felt a pang of sadness and joy at the same time. They were gone, but the lessons remained. The universe had begun to notice humanity, not because of warships, inventions, or strategies, but because humans could care. And that care could travel farther than any starship, touch hearts across galaxies, and teach cosmic beings the meaning of compassion. Mara returned to her diner the next morning, carrying plates of simple food. Every meal she served now felt sacred. She watched as customers, humans and aliens alike, tasted her dishes with attention and curiosity. They were sharing more than food, they were sharing stories, laughter, and care. Mara smiled quietly. Somewhere out there, the tiny dragons would remember the beginning of this story: macaroni, butter, and a human's simple kindness. Weeks passed, and the story spread beyond the spaceport. Merchants, travelers, and even distant planetary leaders shared the tale of the human who taught cosmic dragons the meaning of care through cooking. Mara did not seek fame or reward. She continued to serve, quietly proud of the ripple she had created. The galaxy had learned something important, and it began with one simple act. One evening, Mara looked out at the stars, imagining the dragons traveling among them, sharing what they had learned. She felt a quiet connection with the universe. The lesson was clear: small actions mattered. Acts of kindness, no matter how ordinary, could touch extraordinary beings and shift the course of entire civilizations. Mara returned to her table, placing a plate of macaroni in front of a young alien traveler. She smiled softly. "Enjoy," she said. The alien nodded, eyes bright, and tasted the food carefully. Mara realized that every meal now carried the weight of possibility, the chance to connect, to teach, and to inspire. The diner was no longer just a place to eat. It was a place of learning, sharing, and connection. Mara understood that the galaxy had learned what food really meant: not just fuel, not just flavor, but care, story, and heart. She felt grateful and humble, knowing that a simple act of kindness could echo farther than she ever imagined. And somewhere, far above the stars, the cosmic dragons looked down, wings spread wide, remembering a human who served macaroni with care. The galaxy would never forget what they had learned. that greatness can begin with something as simple as a warm meal and a kind heart. Mara returned to her work, quietly proud, quietly happy. The universe was larger, stranger, and more beautiful than she had ever imagined. And she had played a small part in teaching it one of its most important lessons: that food is love, care, and connection, and sometimes the simplest meal can change everything.